for outreach services, and we will be having an entire forum dedicated to that, or a breakout session for that, so we'll try to get those questions in as well. Now I have the pleasure of introducing another gentleman that I think you're going to be very excited to hear from. And we have the leadership from our reserve component here with us today. Since the start of the conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan, our Army Reserve soldiers and National Guardsmen have been activated and deployed like never before. Through it all, their family members have had to learn, create, adjust as their lives and their definition of Army families has changed. These four gentlemen have made it their priority to support and maintain a high quality of life even during these challenging times. Please join me as we welcome Lieutenant General Ingram. Is he here yet?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, oh good, okay, good. Lieutenant General Ingram, the Director of the Army National Guard, and his Command Sergeant Major Brunk Conley, and Lieutenant General Jeffrey Talley, the Commanding General of the United States Army Reserve, and his Command Sergeant Major Michael Schultz.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill Ingram. I'm the Director of the Army National Guard. Patty, thank you for the introduction. We all know that no soldier serves alone. Each has a family that makes his or her service possible, and we couldn't do what we do, and we couldn't have done what we've done for the last 10 years without tremendous support from our families. I believe the Guard is a family as well. And our family history is a proud one of shared service and sacrifice. We all know that the military of the United States is in a new era of constrained resources. As Director of the Army Guard, I've made enhancing the Guard's core strength and character one of my 5 strategic imperatives as we face these challenging times. At the core of that imperative is this: we must continue to develop resilient soldiers and resilient families through resourced, accessible, and effective programs. And there are a number of programs out there. Before this job, I had the honor of being the Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard almost since the beginning of the war fight. And I know what effective family programs look like, and I know that they've made a difference. Either downrange or at home, our families need this support. And it's not just when we're mobilized. It's in this period of persistent conflict, it's continuous need. That makes family readiness a key component to Guard readiness. In the Guard, most of what is being executed in family programs is done at the state level. In the National Guard, we're a group of 54 states, territories, and the District of Columbia that come together to make the Army National Guard. States have ownership in their soldiers and in their families. The National Guard Bureau doesn't command the states because of the Constitution and the way the militia heritage of the National Guard. When we're not on active federal duty, the chain of command goes to the Adjutant General and the Governor of the state. So there are 54 different programs that are conducted by the National Guard. We give the states the resources that they choose from a menu of programs. They don't necessarily have to do every program. They have the opportunity to pick and choose which programs they use. And obviously the ones that work the best are the ones for them because of geography, because of demographics, because of where they are in the United States. It works quite well. Many of the states have tackled the difficulty of caring for dispersed families through innovative and very effective ways. Some of the programs that we have in the Army were developed in the National Guard, Yellow Ribbon being one of those. Part of what we do here in the district and at the National Guard Bureau is communicate. We're a channel of communications, and we're resources. We talk to the G1s and J1s in the states, and especially the family directors and the program managers that manage these programs inside the states. These are the people through newsletters, websites, yellow ribbon events, face-to-face Army Family Readiness Group meetings, wellness calls, and Family Assistance Center inquiries that work the programs in the states. Family Assistance Centers, Family Readiness Support Assistance, and Survivor Services in the states are the primary channels for getting the word out to the troops and their families. They offer soldiers guidance on employment, making chaplains available through strong bonds, as well as enhancing the coping skills of parents and children. I want to briefly mention some of the best practices and the programs that we want all of our Guard soldiers and their families to be aware of. First is crisis action teams at the state level, comprised of behavioral health officers, SHARP coordinators, suicide prevention program managers, substance abuse coordinators, and others working in concert with each other. States work to synchronize the services of doctors, chaplains, and a wide range of professionals, even tutoring young people through tutor.com. Arizona, Tennessee, Oregon, and Indiana are leaders in developing this unique and unified approach. Behavioral health specialists, and this is one of the models I'm very familiar with. We developed some of these techniques in North Carolina when I was there. This is a model that we've shared with other states, and it's providing one phone number, the main number of the state headquarters, where when you make that call, the first item on the menu is, do you need to talk to press 1 for behavioral health. You can always get a human on the line, and I really believe that that's been very effective in resilience and suicide prevention. Many states have established a proven record of success through buddy-to-buddy support. New Jersey has led the way with the peer-to-peer program that's rapidly growing, and there's a lot of opportunity to take that national. We're making resilience training available to families and youth as well as soldiers. The Job Connection Education Program is an employment program that's now up and running in 7 states that has found good jobs for more than 1,000 soldiers and spouses in just the span of 1 year. JSEP offers soldiers and their spouses the ability to research, obtain, and retain civilian employment through education and job search skills training. And there are a number of programs like that we're using across the Army. Some of the transition programs are almost identical to this, VOW, etc. Our programs are helping soldiers and families every day. Another practice to gain traction in many states is establishing a directorate in each state that focuses on family programs. And family programs generally comes under the G1, but in some states they're consolidating all things that have to do with families in a different directorate. We do that at National Guard Bureau and in the Army National Guard as well. These directorates collect issues, identify capability gaps, and collect best practices. They support soldiers, veterans, and family members. By elevating family and soldier support issues at that level, we're increasing staff focus and command awareness of the issues at both the federal and the state levels. It's important to know that in the Guard, because of geographic dispersion and the way we're organized, we really do take care of our own. And the future of family programs, especially the resourcing of family programs, and the leadership of the Army has made a commitment that'll be the last thing we cut, and I'm very pleased to hear that. I think to me it looks like family programs are going to be resourced and will continue to retain the importance that they've had in the coming years. One thing I would like to see more of is more investment in state directors of psychological health and have more behavioral health specialists beyond the 2 per state. We only get, doesn't matter if you're a state that has 1,000 guardsmen or has 25,000. You get 2, but the allocation is 2 behavioral health specialists per state. The states use other money to fund a behavioral health specialist, but I'd like to see that as a higher priority than we have right now. I'm going to close briefly and allow time for questions and for my battle buddy Jeff Talley and the others to speak, but I'd like to transition now to Sergeant Major Runt Conley, Sergeant Major of the Army National Guard. He's a person that keeps a very close eye on our soldiers and on our resilience and well-being of our soldiers and their families. So, Sergeant Major.
Thanks, sir. I hope, is the microphone working? Can you hear me out there? My name is Command Sergeant Major Brunt Conley. I'm a high school physics and chemistry teacher and citizen soldier. Just came on board 7 days ago, so you'll pardon me if my depth of knowledge is not as deep as you want it to be. We'll be working on that. I think I have a little bit of white space in November for another PowerPoint or a briefing of some sort. So why am I here and what I'm going to be short. First of all, General Rodriguez, General Ferreter, Sergeant Major Rice, General Ingram, General Talley, Sergeant Major Schultz, our battle buddies. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a little bit like a fish out of water here because our family programs in the states, the territories and the districts, usually live in our houses with us. And my family program is teaching first grade in state in Oregon right now and will not be with me until June. So I'm going to be really struggling here, as all of our soldiers do when they are separated from the loved ones and the ones that care for them the most, and tell them when they're being stupid too. So without Laura, I know that, and as all you know, when your soldiers are away from you, they struggle and they need you. And I'm just very glad, Ms. Ingram, that you're here to take care of my battle buddy, and hopefully Laura will join you quickly. One of the things that I think is imperative for the Army National Guard is the distribution of these programs to Broken Bow, Oklahoma, and Kalispell, Montana, and Burns, Oregon. Because our soldiers choose not to be active. They are citizen soldiers. They are the ties to our communities. They are the ones that bring the war home to our great nation, because they're in those communities buying groceries, going to parent-teacher conferences, serving on as the T-ball coach every day. And because they choose to be geographically dispersed, it brings tremendous logistical problems in delivering great programs that the Army has, delivering those programs and services to those soldiers. So while only 7 days on the job, and to be brief, I can just tell you that I will not rest until those great programs are more efficient, delivered as fairly as possible across our great nation to every little community and place where our soldiers and their families serve. So that's all I have for now. I'm sure there will be questions later. And I believe, General Talley, I think you're next on the docket, sir.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Thanks, Sergeant Major.
Thank you.
Oh, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about families and our soldiers and how we can do a better job of teaming and supporting both our soldiers and our families. And Linda and I have had the privilege of being the, so to speak, command team for the Army Reserve for about 4 months, for about 120 days now, and it's been a distinct honor and privilege thus far. And along with my battle buddy, Command Sergeant Major Schultz, you know, we hope to be able to get after your questions. So I'm from the private sector, so I don't do a lot of PowerPoint. I'm not knocking PowerPoint, but I'd rather just maybe cover a few points and then spend more time with Q&A, if that's okay. The messages that I've been giving so far to our Army Reserve, which is 205,000 soldiers, 12,600 civilians, and of course their families, has been really the following, and I'll just kind of tick off a few points. And if you're thirsty for more, as they say, you can read Rally Point 32, which is where I've listed my strategic and operational priorities and my intent, and you'll see there's quite a bit about family and resiliency in those points. The first is most of those 205,000 soldiers are drilling reservists, which means their mortgage payment and their rent is paid for by a civilian employer. And so the message that I remind all those in the Army Reserve is put your family first and put your civilian employer second. Put the Army Reserve third. Put it in that order. Because it doesn't matter what kind of soldier you are in the Army Reserve or what kind of committed family member you are to the Army Reserve and to our Army. Your soldier won't stay part of our great Army Reserve and our Army if those first two get out of balance. And so the best thing you can do for the Army Reserve is make sure that that soldier has a great civilian job and that they're balancing that time between the family, the civilian employer, and then again that third priority is the Army Reserve. And I think that will give us a lot higher quality soldier, and then we'll retain a soldier for life, not only throughout their active life in the Army Reserve, but as an alumni of the Army once they retire. And so that's a message that I've been putting out pretty hard and pretty steady for the last 4 months. And I want to indicate that in order to have success in our Army Reserve, we've got to have that network of shared effort and support that involves that employer and the families, but also we can plug and play, if you will, into our Employers Partnership Office that General Stoltz created and is going strong, as well as with our Army Reserve ambassadors, who are very well networked throughout each state throughout the United States. Now, the reason I mention those Army Reserve ambassadors is because they can really help on family issues, as well can our Employer Partnership Office to make sure that the reserve soldier has the right job and also their family member has the right job. And I think my take so far is most of the challenges that I experience on a large-scale level in the Army Reserves have to do with civilian employment, financial matters, or it has to do with medical issues, all of which we can solve if we know the problem exists by getting to and talking to the individual soldier and the family member. So I want to highlight just a couple programs, and I'll tell you one of them, I didn't realize the impact on it until I got into this position, and that's called Fort Family. Fort Family is an 800 number, and all of our Army Reserve programs are at Army Reserve Family Programs, so arfp.org. So Army Reserve Family Programs are all listed on that website, but all you really got to remember is Fort Family. Fort Family is an 800 number. It's 24/7. It's maintained out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where the headquarters for the Army Reserve Command is. And that phone number is available for any soldier or family member to get help on anything that you need help on. Because if you're like me, sometimes there's lots of programs out there, but you're not sure which one to turn to. We had the issue earlier about what benefits are available to my family member if we're not on an active duty status. Well, depends on what kind of active duty, depends on the installation in some cases. We can help get you that support. And like the National Guard, most of our soldiers and their families are not on or near an Army installation. They may not be near any military installation. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we tailor our programs or our support effort to that individual soldier, to that individual family member. And Fort Family is a great way to do it. I've been absolutely amazed at how successful that program's been, but how it's not utilized very much because maybe we're not doing a great job of communicating that it's out there to all of our families and soldiers. I will say, though, within the family population, there's really two areas that I'm putting a lot of attention on. First and foremost are wounded warriors. I do my own email, and I get a lot of email every day from family members and wounded warriors, particularly their families. And I'll just say the Army Reserve can do better at reaching out to our wounded warriors, and particularly those family members. So one of the things that I wanted to do was put Army Reserve LNOs back at those WTUs where our wounded warrior soldiers are, because for reasons no one can seem to explain in the Army Reserve, we pulled those LNOs, those liaison individuals, out of those locations. So if you're an Army Reserve soldier and you're wounded, your family's there at WTU, you need to be able to know that somebody from your Army Reserve family is there to look out for you and help get you what you need. So I'm putting those LNOs, full-time manning, back into those WTUs for the Army Reserve. The second is a lot of them are looking for legal support. And sometimes they get legal support from places that I don't particularly want them to get legal support, i.e. it's the barracks lawyer or it's the private sector attorney. I respect their entrepreneurship, I just don't like the way they're doing it, where they're reaching into our families and trying to help them for a fee. Well, for good or for bad, I have most of the lawyers in the Army, believe it or not. I think 88% or something like that. And so I've got a legal command with just lawyers falling out of the sky, and so I've already tasked legal command to provide legal assistance, which I can do, directly to all those families and soldiers out there that are in those WTUs that need extra help in negotiating some of the challenges that may be out there in the process for getting well, and in some cases, unfortunately, being separated from our service. And so the wounded warrior, and particularly their family members, are getting a lot of my attention and will continue to get a lot of my attention. And then also a lot of the legal issues associated with employment, as well as getting the right job for that right soldier and for that right family member. And together, I think we're able to do that pretty successfully. The key is I got to know about the problem, and most of the time, once I find out there's a problem, I can normally resolve it. It's pretty easy for us to get things done in the Army Reserve. We have a benefit of being one command, so all the Army Reserve is under one command, all those civilians and all those soldiers, and I can generally influence it, at least I'm still young enough in the job that I think I can, that I can help solve some of those problems and I can right some of the wrongs that we may have inadvertently created by not paying enough attention to our family members and our soldiers. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to the Command Sergeant Major and then we'll get into Q&A. Thanks.
That was basically, you know, a lot of the discussion when General Talley kind of closed on is, you know, over this past year I had a great opportunity to meet a very special family from the Army Reserve. And I want to introduce them to you today. And it's Sergeant Dan Burgess, Staff Sergeant, newly promoted. Staff Sergeant Dan Burgess and his wife Jeanette. Can you guys stand up for me, please? Can we give them a hand? And this family here has had an opportunity, was out at Fort Sam Houston at the Center of Intrepid and had the opportunity to meet both of them out there. And they have 2 young daughters that are going to school out there. And, you know, that was some of the challenges for us. Sergeant Burgess served with our Civil Affairs Command. He was in Afghanistan. He was in South Regional Command South there, down around Kandahar, Afghanistan, and is a right leg amputee. And so when I was over there, had an opportunity to see a lot of the great things that our Civil Affairs soldiers were doing, and then again came in contact with the Burgesses. And so as we've spent the last year kind of going through a lot of some of the challenges, a lot what General Talley talked about is those challenges that are compounded for our Army Reserve soldiers and families and our National Guard soldiers and families as far as being wounded warriors. And so they're getting the state-of-art care and treatment out there at Fort Sam Houston. And thanks to General Ferreter and Sergeant Major Rice, we're able to PCS them as an Army Reserve family to Fort Sam Houston. Their 2 daughters are there now, able to go to school on the installation. And so it's a great, good news story for us. But as we peeled the onion back, we found there was a lot of challenges that we had for this family and their 2 daughters. And so at the end of the day is, again, like General Talley talked about, the complexities that we have in the Army Reserve and National Guard as far as our family programs, because we're geographically dispersed, especially for our wounded warriors and their family members and their children, are compounded for us. And so again, as we get at that with some of the things General Talley talked about as far as our LNOs that are at our WTUs, how do we continue to support not only our family members, but especially the Burgesses and our other wounded warrior families and their children that are out there. So again, be interested to hear a lot of the questions that are generated from this panel. And just want to say again, thanks for what you guys are doing. And they're really kind of championing this for the Army Reserve for us, the wounded warriors and the families, and have really stepped up and really been kind of advocates for the family members for us. So again, thanks to the Burgesses. Well,
Okay, we're going to open it up for questions, and I actually have a question from a delegate, a virtual delegate, who sent in a question during the time that General Ferrier was talking, but I think it's such a great question that I would like for those folks on the stage to answer it, and also General Ferrier, you might even have some comments about it as well afterwards. You're welcome.
You thought you were off the stage, sir.
The question is from Fort Campbell, and the question is, with ongoing studies for PTSD and TBI, has there ever been serious talk about studying how wars and deaths affect the spouses, especially those in leadership positions? I believe that although there are some programs being introduced, i.e. the Master Resilience Trainer, spouses may be suffering from some form of PTSD themselves. So I guess what I'm asking is, are you all looking at that in any way, support for spouses? And we'll start with the folks on the stage.
I think there's been quite a bit of research done. PTSD obviously affects the people that the person suffering is around, and that equates to spouses and children, other family members, if there are others in the house. I know Duke University has looked at PTSD from that perspective. I don't know of concrete findings. You know, PTSD is an ongoing issue that is, in some cases, hard to define. It's hard for the medical community to make a diagnosis. I think some of the diagnoses that have been made in the past have been challenged. We're learning as we go along with TBI as well as PTSD, but we all know that it affects the people around the individual that's suffering. That's not an answer to the question, but I know there's research going on.
In the Army Reserve, I guess what I would say is we recognize that whether it's severe as PTSD or whether it's just having some tough times coping, everybody needs help, whether you're in uniform or you're a family member. And so the way that I'm approaching that in the Army Reserve, which I think will not be a standalone program, but one that I think is going to get after it, is, again, I apologize, I took it from a business perspective. Who is at risk of leaving the organization we call the Army Reserve? Now remember, I just said if you don't keep your family first and your employer taken care of in terms of employment, I'm not going to keep the soldier. There's no way, long term. So based upon that foundation, well, we know we have, first off, through good NCO and officer leadership, we got to get back to the basics. It's been emphasized by our Army, and know our soldiers and their families better. That's pretty tough in the Army Reserve when you may not see them but one battle assembly a month or a few weeks in the summer when they're in a traditional drilling status. But my way of looking at it is, if I look at those at-risk soldiers and families, they're at risk of what? At risk of leaving that great organization and brand called the Army and the Army Reserve. Well, we can kind of identify who those are. Matter of fact, it's okay. We can say, well, first, who are they? Well, they're the non-participants. They're people that don't come to drill all the time. They don't come to work all the time, but they're on our books. You know, the challenges we have aren't normally with folks that come to all the battle assemblies, are very active in family programs. To be frank, the folks that we have challenges with aren't the people that are represented in this room, because the fact that you're in this room means you're actively engaged in our Army and family programs. But it's the ones that maybe aren't so engaged. And so what we're trying to do is look at that non-participation list, okay? Then within it, add names to that list that would be people that we think might have financial challenges, perhaps known behavioral health issues, employment issues, could be drug and alcohol issues, could be a single parent. Look at them because they're at risk of leaving our Army. And then we move them to, at least their name, over to that Regional Support Command who links in the Fort family. And now what we find out is, hey, Sergeant Talley lost his job a month ago, and that's putting tremendous stress on the family. But no one knows that, because there's no way Talley's going to tell you when he comes to battle assembly that he got laid off. And you don't know the stress that's putting on the family. Now, we recently did this, and I have to give credit to Linda. Linda kind of turned me on to Fort family and how powerful it was, because we were looking for a trooper who was kind of a non-participant, was coming to battle assembly but not all the time. We had some concerns about him. So Fort family engaged. Well, what Fort family does is they engage the family. They start calling the guy's mom, his mother, his cousin. Next thing you know, they said, yeah, I haven't heard from Jeff. What the heck's he doing? Next thing you know, you got grandma, you got everybody looking out for this guy. Within a couple of days, they had found him, secured him, found out he had unemployment, he had lost a job, he wasn't telling anybody in the family. We were able to reach out, help him, and bring him and his family back into our Army Reserve Command, into that unit. Now that's a success story, but I think that's kind of the way I'm trying to get at it in the Army Reserve. Michael, you're up.
Well, this goes back to the really big idea that if we have an unblinking eye on our soldiers from their entry, basic AIT, to their first unit, the way they're sponsored and received, if we know them and are taking care of them, then we're building that resiliency. The simple answer to the question is yes, there are plenty of studies, lots of studies on the effects of combat, protracted years of war on family members. And all of you here who've ever worn a black dress and gone to the funeral and felt the emotion of the moment, and many have done it repeatedly to honor our fallen. A little bit of you goes with that ceremony each time. And so the idea of resiliency is to make you stronger again. And so, yes, not only has it been studied, but the Army has programs and action to help. That's the comprehensive soldier and family fitness idea. So that at every installation, you've got the resource, you've got the ability to teach someone how to deal with the difficulty, how to communicate better within their house, as the Sergeant Major said, or as a you know, the daughter-in-law is a family support group leader. She didn't grow up in an Army family. And now Lauren, our daughter-in-law, is involved in helping families. Those of you in TRADOC, your soldiers and drill sergeants came from a unit that was at war. They have issues. The wives, the spouses need the help as well. And as well, they're at risk if we leave them behind. So big business, big work, and again, getting it down at the right place. Within the installations, at the family advocacy offices, and the domestic violence prevention or response is a part of this. So it's like a spider web of interconnected need, and those programs are out there. The care that we have for our families is out there, and really the purpose and direction and vision from the Army's most senior leadership is all over on this one, because that's what the Chief said this morning, that's what the Secretary said, and that's the next 5 years. You know, the bow wave of need is still coming, because the number of troops that will be back at home for extended period is going to increase. Over. Thanks.
Questions from the room?
Hi, my name is Rebecca Homan, and my husband and I are a reserve family. My husband is currently deployed to Afghanistan. One of the biggest struggles that we've faced as a reserve family and with my husband's soldiers is that between January and the time they deployed in June, they were home maybe a total of 2 months. They were gone for a few weeks, home for a few days, gone for a month, home for a few days. With all that, they weren't able to work at their civilian jobs in between, so a lot of them faced struggles with paychecks because they wouldn't get paid until the next time they left for training from the previous training. And as a result, we had some soldiers facing foreclosure at some point, and we even had a soldier had a family emergency and had to come home from a training. But because they weren't on 30-day orders or Title X orders at that point, they couldn't get funding from AER or anywhere else. What are some things, how can we help our soldiers, our reserve and guard soldiers, in these situations? This has been a big struggle that we've seen on the reserve side.
You used the word Title X, so I'm assuming you're referring to a National Guard soldier. I can talk about the Army Reserve issue and how we're getting after it. I don't want to be presumptuous to speak for the National Guard.
Army Reserve.
Okay. Well, the short answer is that's bad leadership from the Army Reserve Unit if that's soldiers from an Army Reserve Unit. And why do I say that? Well, first off, if we're being mobilized and deployed for a combat effects mission, a combat mission, the deployment boots on the ground now is 9 months, and you're on orders for 12. Well, in the Army Reserve, we're a bunch of enablers. It's not a dirty word. Enablers are good, okay? Engineers, logisticians, civil affairs. Matter of fact, most of your combat service support and combat support for the Army, day in and day out, is in the Army Reserve. And so that tends to be what we do in the civilian sector. And so to be frank, it's pretty easy. My last job was a training commander for the 84 Training Command, and my job was to assess and certify the readiness of every soldier and leader and unit in the Army Reserves headed down range. Okay? It's really easy for us to get ready to the right of the MOB date. As a matter of fact, Jack Stoltz, the previous car, he picked up on this and he had it right. He said, you know, if they're being mobilized and deployed for 12 months to go downrange for a combat mission, we don't want to do anything to the left of the MOB date above and beyond the routine training that they would normally do. Why? Because you got 90 days once they go on MOB orders, once they go on active duty. We don't need that much time to get enablers ready. Combat effects formation, different story, much harder. But logistics units, engineers, not so hard. And so what should happen, and that's why General Stoltz implemented this policy, so I can't take credit for it, he had it exactly right, is if it is a 12-month deployment, we're going to just no extra drills, no extra active duty prior to the MOB date. You just keep doing what you normally do. Now, you might get a third week of annual training and Train Ready 2 and 3, which are those years leading up to that deployment, but not the experience you're talking about. And the reason we made that change in the Army Reserve to our policy and how we implement training was for exactly the reason that you mentioned. Because, again, I'm a traditional reservist. I've spent 2 of the last 5 years, I guess, abroad in a combat zone. And you're exactly right. What happens is they start double and triple stacking all the battle assemblies, and then they start piecemeal all the annual training, and then they say, hey, what other pots of annual active duty for training can we get? Next thing you know, Joe or Jeff's been gone for 6 months, 4 to 6 months, here and there prior to the MOB date. Meanwhile, what? I don't get any benefits from the Army, active Army, because it's not over 29 days. And my civilian employer is just kind of irritated. Look, either be gone or don't be gone. And so that's why we've implemented that policy change. And so that should not be happening anymore. So maybe send me an email or talk to me later and rat out some folks to me, okay? All right. Thank you.
General Talley, I'm J.C. Eckhart from military.com.
Oh, there you are.
You mentioned something that has come up with our readers a lot over the past year about the people who are most at risk are the people who are not participating. We had a story this year about an Air Force family where the child died of neglect and malnutrition during a deployment. Of course, our spouses were really upset about this. But what got me was all the helping professionals that contacted us who said, we have everything to offer and we can't get people to come in. I didn't know what to say to that because we see the same thing everywhere about non-participation. Can you tell me what the Army's doing to try to bring people back in person?
Yeah, well, I can't speak for the Army. I can speak for the Army Reserve. At least I think I can. In the Army Reserve, at the end of the day, you can have a gazillion programs. You can have money from the sky. You can do anything and everything. But if you can't get positive contact with that soldier and their family member to know what's going on, it don't matter. That's the point you're making. And so, other than putting an all-point bulletin out on Jeff Talley who's, you know, missing drills or we think there's something wrong through whatever source of intel we may get, the only other thing we can do is, and as our major has said it very well to our formations, and that is getting back to this. We got to get past this idea that somehow I'm invading your privacy if I really know who you are and what you are. And in the Army Reserve, and I would suspect it's true in the National Guard, that means we got to know what's going on with the employer. We got to know is everything okay in your family life with respect to finances, with respect to the employment? Do we have an issue that Rebecca, I think it was, just brought up over here, where the unit is part of the problem because they're drilling the heck out of this guy or gal? But if we don't make that positive contact, then it doesn't matter. So the only thing I can say is, what I try to do is say, and maybe this isn't a good analogy, but the most important meeting you have in a division in combat is a target-ears meeting. At least that was my opinion. Okay, because you're competing for resources. So I've used that analogy in the Army Reserve. So we have a target meeting, but the target meeting is a good meeting. It's a meeting where we're trying to identify, and if we can identify the soldier because we haven't seen a lot of them, or there's just some sort of sense that maybe something's not right, you know, or just randomly call employers. I actually do that, by the way. I will randomly call an employer or a spouse. I know Linda does it a lot more than I do, just to check in and see how things are going. I'll send random letters out to employers to find out how is that Army Reserve soldier okay in their organization. Other than just that personal human effort. You know, I don't think you can't BlackBerry or iPhone this thing. You've got to have that leadership. It's got to be that face-to-face. It's got to be this sort of leadership that we used to do, and I think we still do in our Army. But I will just make a commitment to you. I'm convinced, again, I'm 120 days in the job, so I'm still drinking my own Kool-Aid. I'm convinced if you join the Army Reserve, I will make you a better family member. And I will make you more marketable in the private and public sector. And if I don't, then you need to get the heck out of the Army Reserve. But I'll make you more marketable, and I'll make you a better family member, because we will help you balance your life. We will help you through the challenging points, as well as get you the type of experiences you need to be the best and the brightest, both in your civilian employment and in your family members. And that's what I tell folks. You're not any use to me as a soldier if you're a number 10 husband or number 10, spouse or a bad employee. You got to be the best and the brightest in your employment and in your family in order to even have a chance of being a decent Army Reserve soldier. So I don't have a silver bullet for you, I'm sorry, but that's the best I could do.
I think we're talking about basic leadership. Everything happens at the company level. Company commander is the only person that owns a formation that can stand everyone up and look them in the eye. When you get above that level of command, you have large formations and you can't really know everyone. But at the company level, the company commander, the first sergeant, really knows his people as well as squad leaders and platoon sergeants. So it's personal contact, exactly what General Talley was talking about, and building a command climate that makes it okay to say I need help, and understanding that family members have a role in this as well, and building a family readiness group that actually does something and is engaged. And if you build it's kind of build it and they'll come, and it really works that way. If you've got something that's interesting, if you've got people that have similar experiences, especially for mobilization, but you can do that with training events as well. And it's building the family atmosphere, if you will. I don't think I've ever used that analogy before, but it really is building a family atmosphere so that people care about the guy on your left and right. You definitely do when you're in the fight. Soldiers absolutely care about the person on their left and right, and the camaraderie and the teamwork really gets quite intense. So you can do that after the fight or before the fight as well.
All right, sir, if I can pile on to that. It's, a lot of discussion this past year for us has just been about what General Talley talked about. It's NCO leadership. It's NCO leadership being there because, again, we see our soldiers traditionally one weekend out of a month. And so there's a lot of excuses out there that, it's good enough to send an email to a soldier or to their family members, and that's not the answer. And that's very weak. Because even though if we're geographically dispersed and I live in Tampa, Florida, and my unit's in Orlando, Florida, and I can't maybe put eyes on that soldier, I can pick up a phone and talk to that soldier. And then when they come in at a battle assembly, as opposed to scattering to the winds, it's up to that squad leader, first line leader, to pull that soldier together or those soldiers together under a tree and have some face time, looking them in the face to say, first off, we're going to have an accountability formation, and then we're going to talk and see how you're doing and what's happening in your lives. And then part of that is we're going to talk about what's going to happen during this battle assembly. And then at the end when you leave, we're going to follow up with a call to make sure that when that soldier then leaves and drives back from Orlando to Tampa, Florida, that soldier made it home safe. And that's the start of it, because then the soldier knows that their leadership cares. Not that after that formation is over, I don't see you again until next month. It starts with involved leadership. And it starts with that first line leader, like General Talley said and General Ingram, is getting in our soldiers' face. And it's not about invading their privacy. It's our job to do that as NCOs. And that's what we've got to continue to stress, and that's what we're continuing to do with the NCO Corps. We've just got to fine-tune it. We've got to get our eyes back on point again.
My question is for General Ingram. I'm Debbie Boynton, and I'm from Texas. I have a husband in Afghanistan, a son on the way, and a son-in-law on the way. My question is the same as the reserve component wife up here. What is the Guard perspective on that additional train-up time before they go on the active duty orders?
I have to agree with Jeff. We don't necessarily, well, let me caveat. It has to do with the state and the unit, and different philosophies of the tags come into play here. The guidance from the top is there's enough time after mobilization to work the cohesion piece and get the mission training part done. The individual training you should be ready for, you know in advance when you're going to deploy. So the individual training task can certainly be done pre-mobilization. It's got to be signed off by the tag anyway. In some cases, depending on the mission that the unit has, I was just at the NTC a couple of weeks ago and saw the 56 from Texas. It's getting ready to do the SFAT mission in Afghanistan. And I talked with many of the soldiers, certainly the leadership, and they felt very good about their pre-deployment task. They've, as you know, been at, if your husband is part of that unit. No, okay, sorry. But they had a planned training regimen. They knew when they were going. Their unit was prepared. I don't think they took any extraordinary period of time bouncing between training periods and on and off and on and off. That's one of the things several years ago when we were mobilizing brigade combat teams, we talked about contiguous training. And the idea was to push all the training time just before the mobilization. That's when we had 1 year boots on the grind. And we were taking an inordinate amount of time doing training in other venues. And that way you could make a clean cut with your civilian employer and your family for that matter, because it's hard to say goodbye over and over. You could make that clean cut. You would do all the pre-mob tasks, especially the collective pre-mob task for a full spectrum brigade combat mission. And then take a time out, go back home, take a little bit of leave, and then go to the MOB station and immediately into deployment. And that worked quite well. I can't answer your direct question because I'd have to understand the full circumstances.
Ma'am, if I may speak to that as well, we have gotten much better. When I deployed to Iraq in 2003, I was at Fort Hood for 6 months training to prepare to go to Iraq for a 12-month boots on ground mission. In 2007, when I went to Afghanistan, I was at Camp Shelby for 4 months prior to going for a 1-year boots on ground mission in Afghanistan. Because of our experience, because of our 10 years of combat experience and the things that we know now within our formations and the new boots on ground policy of 12 months deployed with 9 months boots on ground, that has been minimized. Right? And your soldiers are away from home much less time than we were in the early portions of the war. However, when you get into the force generation cycle, and when you're in year, training year 3 and 4, there are increased annual trainings, and there are increased MUTAs, battle assemblies, as you've heard, that are authorized for those units. So it does increase in the year prior. But hopefully, like General Ingram said, through the adjutants general and the governors, they minimize that and they do the best they can to keep soldiers at home as long as they can before they move out for the 1-year deployment.
And I think we have time for one last question. Yes.
Hi. I'm Mary Sally Mathieu, Assistant Secretary for the Army for Financial Management and Controller. I go back to accountability, the question that was asked before. How do we know that we are getting good service from our service providers? How do we know we're getting good counseling? How do we know we're getting good housing? How do we know that all these activities we're giving to our family members are in fact effective and that they're getting the job right and that we're buying good service from them?
Go ahead.
Thanks for that question. So on the active component side, at every installation, we have a person called the garrison commander and the senior commander. And the truest feedback will come from the families by way of the variety of councils, meetings, and forum that they set up. The Community Health Promotion Council lets us know if we're taking care of our exceptional family member, children or spouses. The school liaisons sit on that, and they let us know where the programs that we're putting for before school or after school, if those are valuable and attaining the results that we want. And as you go through each of the programs, the feedback that the installation command, the chain of command, who can have all of his brigade commanders and sergeants major around the table with them, and any one of the providers. And then, as we've heard here, someone says, I'm not satisfied with the housing here for the following reason. And then someone like me says, it's my fault. I'm responsible for training those folks. Or I'm not satisfied with the speed with which we correct a deficiency. And so in each one of these, I think the real people in the loop, speaking with the chain of command, the leaders, do that. At the same time, there's teaching that needs to go on to ensure everyone understands, is there a standard? What is the standard? And are we enforcing the standard, whether it be the deliverer of the service or not? So I think that's the biggest way that we determine the measurement and the results. And where it's a dead program or no longer relevant to what our families and soldiers need, then those are the ones this year that we're going to say, look, we had this program, and then someone else came and added on, and then someone else came and added on, and this is the feedback that we get. So now, from least important in value to most, those are the ones we say they're not relevant anymore. Let's apply those funds somewhere else to include on the readiness side of it. I'll defer to you.
And at Fort State, if you want to call it that, there's 54 state family program managers that are out there. That's what I was talking about earlier, probably not as well explained as I could have been, but those family program managers understand the people in their state, their geography, the demographics with their units, and they manage those programs. The ones that are not underutilized, they'll trade them in and spend that money on a more effective program, and they continually compare notes, best practices with other states, as well as the National Guard Bureau, to understand the mix of programs that are available to them. A little bit, it's decentralized as opposed to the way the Army and the Army Reserve run their programs, but it's the nature of the Army National Guard to have to operate in that environment. So I think there's good fingers on the pulse to find out what's working and what's not. And in many cases, it comes down to the individuals that are running the particular programs, because there's so few people. You really have, you're not doing this large programmatics piece. The State Family Programs Director can actually have personal interaction with the people that are administering the program, so they know what's working well and what's not.
Yeah, ma'am, thank you for the question. You and I have had some dialogue on this, so I would simply say, for me, it doesn't matter whether it's a family program, it doesn't matter what it is. We've got to look at everything that we do in the Army Reserve and say, is it cost effective? Are we getting a good return on the investment? Which means you have to have, metrics. And so one of the things that I have my CFO doing, Steve Austin, that's his name, I'm not making that up. Steve is a great CFO. And so one of the things that Steve's looking at for me, and I had a very heated discussion with Congressman Cooper in his office, who's all about fiscal responsibility and the deficit. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is identify across everything we do in the Army Reserve, what are the metrics, how do we quantify that we're getting the type of results that we want for whatever the customer or shareholder is, in this case it would be families, and if we're not, we got to say, do we need to change the program, do we need to cut the program? we need to do something different in order to give the taxpayer what they deserve, which is efficiency. Now, my opinion, and only Jeff Talley's opinion, if the Army Reserve can't do that, there's no hope for the Army. Now, I say that because we're one command, one single command, and I own it all. And we are predominantly civilians who serve as soldiers, most who are in the business arena in some aspect of business. So if we can't gain that audit readiness and that business efficiency and effectiveness, regardless of what the program is, then shame on us. And I challenge Congressman Cooper on this. Him and I both went to Oxford, and I was beating up on him on this, and him and I had a really spirited debate. And I challenged him that I could do this in the Army Reserve, and so I'm going to do my damnedest to get it done. Obviously, I'm going to put a higher focus on certain programs, but at the end of the day, my principal responsibility is to provide ready and accessible soldiers, leaders, and units to General Rodriguez and to the other supported commands, and you can't do that without having that family readiness as part of that process. And so, but you know, as an engineer, we got to have those metrics. We got to, in my opinion, you got to link it to the money, and we've got to make sure we're spending the money effectively and efficiently. And I'll just throw a stone at the government. The government's not exactly known for that. So I'm doing my damnedest to make sure that we do that in the Army Reserve, and I know the leadership of the Army is committed to doing the same.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. We appreciate your time and your comments and all the questions as well. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll have our senior leadership on board next.